Well, good morning, everybody. It is Saturday morning. I guess it's August the 16th. I'm really not sure if I got the date right, but it's pretty close, middle of August. And I'm always excited about Saturday morning, but I'm particularly excited this morning because Haley Lee is someone I met a couple of years ago. Was so impressed with her. She didn't realize that day. I just listened to her story and so many things. I'm so glad she agreed to be on. I actually texted her kind of short notice, and I said, I'd really like to have you on my call as soon as possible. And she said, well, you better take me this Saturday because I'm going to be covered up for the next several. So I was so thankful that she agreed to do this. But before we get started with that, I have an announcement. I don't think she's going to be able to unmute. She just texted me. I'd ask her to. I'm just so excited to announce Cindy Landis. Actually, is one of the very first people I personally sponsored into this company. And just so excited to announce that she has qualified for her $10,000 savings account bonus. And guys, that's
amazing.
and she said, you know, you just watched it build up over time. And she said, all at once, I realized I didn't even think I was watching it that close. And I don't think she's going to be able to unmute. She texted that she was traveling. Cindy recently lost her dad. And during this all, she's continued to work. We were at Columbus, Ohio event where she's originally from and still right there with everything going on. She said her dad would be so proud of her to continue to work. And I always just wish her the best and prayers for her family for all that. So Cindy, thank you for trusting me and being a part of my team for, I guess, 15, 16 years now we've worked together. We don't look that old. I mean, I might, but you don't. So she was really young when we started. So at any rate, thank you for all you've done. And I know there's a lot of people on her team here, and it's exciting when you receive this bonus. I love that way our company does that. Nothing against car programs. I've been in the car systems. But guys, I don't know, something about cash makes me feel really good. I don't have to sign a lease on a car. I just get to get I get my money on Friday, and that was really fun. Now we get it once a month. That's what you learn about the savings bonds. And once you've earned it, you get it once a month. So with that, I want to switch straight to Haley Lee. I want to set this up to be speaker review. Give me just a second. And as we get started here this morning, I just want you to understand that, what can I say? We're better together. Haley and I have no financial connections. And that's one of the things that makes our company, its culture, so different. A lot of times people think that most of my guests on this call, as a matter of fact, I don't think it's been a while since I've had a guest from my own team. We try to make this Saturday call about Partner Co. and about what you can do to better yourself and improve yourself. And Haley's actually from my home state. I don't get many guests from my home state except my daughter. I believe you live in Franklin, Tennessee. Is that correct? I might be wrong about that, around Franklin.
Yes, that's right.
So it looks like to me you might be you have a little farm area behind you. Is that your actual background? So I see some.
That's my background. That's not my house that you see in the background, obviously, but we've got about 5 acres out here. So we've got some distance in between our neighbors, which is nice.
Absolutely. For those that don't know, Franklin, Tennessee is one of the most exclusive areas in the state of Tennessee to live. So she's rubbing elbows with the country music stars. That's where they all live. I think that's where Tim McGraw lives and Faith Hill. I mean, there's a lot of big music people, and I know some of those music people because of my friends that were in the music industry for so long. But with that, I want to just Haley and I talked about it. I want everybody to realize we really don't plan. She asked me what I wanted to talk about, and we really want people to talk about themselves. I gave her a couple of topics I'd ask her about, but the bottom line is we just want to get to know people and learn from them. And I've just learned over the time that trying to plan too much, it just seems to come from the heart better when you don't have a lot decided on. But Haley, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background first? I just want you to know who Haley is before you started in this industry. I don't really know exactly how long you've been in the industry. I know you've been with Partner Co. over a couple of years, but just kind of tell us where you started and how that came about.
So I'm originally from Brandon, Mississippi. If you pick up on that accent, that's where it originates. My husband and I both are from Mississippi, and I went to school at Mississippi State University. So I may live in Tennessee, but I'm a Bulldog at heart, and we still are big fans of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. So I guess on one hand, I cheer for maroon and white, and the other hand, I will cheer for the big orange team as well. Um, but I grew up in Braden, and after college, I came home for a couple of years and worked in an HR department for a commercial real estate firm, and actually moved with them to Orlando for a short time. Um, and then from Orlando, I went to Atlanta, and I lived in Atlanta for about 5 years and worked again in commercial real estate there. But then I came back to Mississippi in the Jackson area and was an HR business partner or an HR manager at the largest level 1 trauma center in the state of Mississippi. And that was a large role. I had about 1,000 to 1,500 employees that were kind of my customer group. But my time in HR really taught me to love people. And I learned through that experience, as stressful as it was some days, that different things make different people excited. They run for different carrots, and recognition is important to everyone when they can feel valued and to be an active contributor to the overall success of their department or their organization. And so I was introduced to direct sales in 2012, early 2012. My mom actually was invited to an opportunity meeting for a friend of hers whose daughters had just recently gotten started with this company. And my mom went, and my mom and I actually worked at the same hospital. She's a retired CRNA. And so she calls after work and she says that she's going to this meeting. And I distinctly remember rolling my eyes and saying, don't get sucked in, have fun. And that was it as far as I was concerned. I said, call me when you're done and confirm to me that you didn't get sucked into this. So she calls and she says, I really think this could change your financial future. And I was like, great. Because she had never said anything to me like that before. So, of course, I was intrigued. So I ended up contacting one of the people that she went for, and essentially, long story short, got involved with that company. And it was really initially about a financial, what I saw as an additional savings account. My husband and I had just gotten married in October the previous year. This was in January. So we were still very much in that newlywed stage where he really didn't tell me no very often. He may have rolled his eyes behind the scenes and said, I can't believe you're doing this, but he was supportive from day one. He may not have understood it, but he was supportive. And I feel like that's one thing that a lot of people who come to direct sales don't have. Truth be told, is that support from home. But I'm grateful that I never went through that personally. So I came in thinking that this would be a way that we could save for the long term. But very, very quickly, within 6 weeks, my world was flipped upside down when my dad was diagnosed with liver cancer. And that literally was a 48-hour turnaround from everything is fine to everything is not fine. And, now we're looking, we didn't know it at the time. And there's something to be said for that bubble of um, ignorant bliss, I guess, in terms of just how critical life was. I mean, this was my dad. He was 64 years old. He was healthy. He was active. He was retired. He spent lots of time in his yard. There was never a leaf that hit the ground that wasn't immediately mulched. He was really what I felt like was in the prime of his life. And then he was very sick. And I was a daddy's girl. I still consider myself a daddy's girl 13 years almost later. But you know, what changed about my mindset with the business was life is short and you've got some options. You've got an option here that you can take and run with to create some change for yourself. But I also, during that almost 7 month time frame from his diagnosis to his death, that business was something that I could control. When everything around me was falling apart and I had no control over what was happening, I felt like I had some level of control of my business. And so I continued to just show up and show up and show up. And so in January, after he passed away in November, I was headed to a meeting one night that we had in Jackson. And I remember it was cold. I forgot to say that when my dad passed in November of 2012, I was 12 weeks pregnant with my daughter. And so you can imagine the influx of hormones and emotions and all the things going through that period. So this particular night, this January cold, rainy, I'm pregnant. I'm really not in the mood, honestly, to be around people. I had two guests that were supposed to come to that event, and both of them called me that afternoon and said they weren't coming. And so then it was one of those things like, well, if they're not coming, I don't need to go either. But I had heard from the beginning, leaders show up. And the more you show up to events, the more you stay plugged in and connected. And so I will never forget walking to the top of the stairs in this building where we were meeting, and Sheila Bukowski was standing there. And that was the first night that I met her. And she could read it all over my face. And I remember her hugging me and just saying, whatever you do, don't quit. Now, Sheila and I were on different teams. We had no financial interest in each other. But what formed that night was a friendship and someone that through, 13 years almost this year, we've lived life. We've done life outside of business. So trying not to get emotional about that. But, you know, I'm trying to think of like how to speed up this story so I don't take all day telling it. But essentially, when my daughter was born on what would have been my dad's 65th birthday, unplanned, unscheduled, she is a true gift from God to us on what was a sad time and a sad day. But I was able to leave my corporate career when Ellison was 22 months old. And I remember going to the home office when she was 5 months. That was the first trip that I had earned with the company. And that's where our home office was. And one of the things that really stood out to me about that trip was we get off the elevator and everybody's, high-fiving us and clapping and toasting with champagne and all the things. And I remember thinking to myself, when was the last time I walked down the hall at the hospital and got a high five and a thank you and an atta girl? And that had never happened. And so it goes back to recognizing, your people. And so I came back from that trip really with my hair on fire because I just didn't have it in me anymore to continue to climb the corporate ladder. I wanted it for so long, and I felt like that's where I thrived. I honestly was being groomed to take on a much larger role, but I didn't want it anymore because I knew through the death of my dad that life is short. And this business vehicle had truly given me a vehicle to do something else. And it was up to me to go make it happen. And so fast forward, I left that in February of 2015. We immediately moved because my husband changed jobs. So we moved from Mississippi to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we're there for about 18 months. My husband is an automotive engineer. So he left Nissan to go to Volkswagen and then was able to get back on with Nissan. And that's what moved us to Nashville 9 years ago. So we've been in the Nashville area 9 years. We do live just outside of Franklin and Arrington. Many people have heard of Arrington Vineyards. It's kind of a popular tourist area, but we love this area and they're so blessed to be here. So
Franklin's an impressive area, and if you haven't visited Franklin, Tennessee, I would tell you you're missing out. It's one of the most unique places in our state. But revolve things forward. Talk about, obviously you were with another company at that time. It was very successful. It's a great company. It still is. It's just they made a change in the way they were set up. So you had to look for a new home, and you found us and Partner Code due to someone who just made a decision to call you. So why don't you talk about that process just a little bit?
So I was with that company 12 years to the day. Let me just say that. I've been in the industry since February 29th. It was Leap Day 2012, whenever I initially enrolled. It truly was a leap of faith into something that I swore I would never do. I was too educated. I made too much money. I was too good for that kind of thing. And here I am, going on 14 years later. But I saw the opportunity. Well, let me back up and say things had changed a lot with our company. I would say starting in 2019, 2020. COVID certainly didn't help. But the atmosphere changed and there were decisions that were being made at the corporate level that impacted us that we didn't get a say so in, which is, pretty normal, I guess. But there were also things that were not being communicated to us that I feel like maybe should have been. But when my youngest, so I have a daughter that is 12 and a son that just turned 8. When my son started kindergarten in 2023, I knew that it was time for me to start looking for something to supplement that income. And so ideally, I wanted something that I could do from home. I had been at home since 2015 and really was not wanting to lose my flexibility. So I put out applications all over the place, looking for remote work. I wasn't looking for a full-time position. I truly wanted something to supplement. I left this part out, but we built our home in 20, it started in 21. We closed on it in 23, April of 23. And so we had a lot of debt, like we had more bills than we had ever had. And we needed that income to be back to where it was at one time. And so, through the course of looking for something else, I did go on a couple of different interviews. I got to the final stage of one interview with the state of Tennessee, actually. And the woman says to me, "What are your 5 to 10 year goals?" And, there's few times in my life that I feel like I'm speechless, but I was speechless. I didn't have an answer for her. And so what I said was, I don't have one. Like, I've been an entrepreneur for almost 10 years. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and life is short. So I didn't get that job, which was totally fine. But it made me realize through that process, this really is not what I want. Like I really want to keep my complete flexibility and ownership of my days. And so that was in November of 23 when I went on that final interview, if you will. And I knew from an HR world, coming from an HR world, that things slow down around the holidays. People aren't hiring, they kind of go into a freeze, if you will, until probably February, to be honest, to get everybody back in the office after the holidays. And so I knew that that was probably my last shot for the year. But around that time, early December, I see a post on social media like most people do when they come to Partner Co. And it was about hormone balance and losing weight and, shots or drops, which would you prefer? And I had taken the shots in the summer of 23 for about a month. I was very hesitant about doing that because in my mind, I'm thinking, what's in these? What are the long term, side effects that we don't know about? But I also felt horrible. And so I stopped taking them after a month because I just didn't feel good. But at the time, I was working with a nurse practitioner for hormone balance. And so I screenshot the post and I sent it to Sheila and I said, "You're better friends with Michelle than I am. And you talk to her more. And I'm truly interested in this product." Well, she called back that afternoon and she was like, "You're going to want the product, but there's a business attached to it." And I was like, "Absolutely not." you know, absolutely not. Not again. Um, and I can't say that my first stint in direct sales was bad. It was not. I am so grateful for that experience and for the friendships that I made throughout all of that. Um, I truly loved it for so long, and it was such a huge part of my life. I just at the moment could not imagine starting over and doing it again. So I talked to my husband. He also was like, "Absolutely not." But I knew that you have to get the deepest discount, you come in with a membership, right? Like so that you can buy it at wholesale. So I finally talked him into that. And I enrolled with Partner Code January 1st of last year in 2024. And it's it is something that I knew that if the product worked for me, that I could sell it because literally every person that I know is concerned with hormone imbalance or weight loss or a combination of the two. And so that's how I got to Partner Co.
So since you've been here, I know you've had an amazing health change just because I've heard you talk about that and how much it's helped with that. What have you've been excited about where you see the company going, or just I want to add something to what you said before I'm going to step back just a second. You talked about not ever going to do this again. Just for those who don't know, I was with a previous company for 12 years and had a good experience and made a ton of money. And when that company left me, I didn't leave it. It left me, went out of business. That was my exact thing. I'm never doing this again. So that's okay. It's like, and oddly enough, I ended up, and here we are, and with this company, and I couldn't say any more things better, but it's changed. Most importantly, that company was all about the money. This company has changed my health and made me so much
Mhm.
more blessed. I've never made the money here I made with the other company. It's not even about that, but I made really good. But the difference was, is this also give me something else, and that was I feel great. I mean, that's the part that most people don't know. When I left the other company, I was 318 pounds and on 5 meds and not making any health claim. We don't heal, treat, or diagnose anything. But here I am 12 years later. Now, by the way, this company merged in the company I started with, was one of the products, and I'm on no meds now. I'm 12 years older, no meds, and I weigh 80 pounds less than I started. So that's healthier. So there's two things here we offer. That's what I want to point out. You don't just feel better, you're making really good money, but you also changed your health. So talk about what you see in the future of Partly Co, because you've been in the industry a long time now, and you've kind of seen how things are set up. So just talk a little bit about how you feel about where we're going and why you're working so hard now.
Well, to speak to the health benefits, first of all, for me, it was sleep and energy, and that was game changer, because I hadn't slept through the night in a long time consistently. My husband said after about 3 weeks, he said, "I feel like I have the old you back." And at first, I was a little bit offended, like, "What do you mean, the old me? Like, has it been that bad?" You know, yeah, it had, and I knew it had, but I felt more alive, and I felt truly like I better than I had for the previous 10 years. And so when you feel as good as you feel, you want other people to feel that way too. You want to give them their quality of life back and their, happy marriage back and all the things that you feel like you're benefiting from. And so honestly immediately started using other products outside of the drops that what brought me here. And I've found that the more products that I use, the better and better that I feel. And so that is important. And I think that people need to understand, it's not just about money. It's truly about living your best life and being the best version of yourself that you can be so that you can be that wife and mom or dad or whoever you are in your life. But what stood out to me about Partner Co and truly the bullet points that I typically share with people whenever they're considering the opportunity are things that spoke to me. One of them is that the company's debt free. The second one is that we have no third party investor. I truly believe that that was the turning point in my previous company, was when they partnered with a third party investor. We didn't know that at the time. We saw it as more opportunity for us, global footprint type thing. But when other people are dipping their hands into your profit, it makes less profit for you. And we don't have to worry about that here. Another really important thing to me is that John Wadsworth, in particular, comes from the direct sales industry. Like, this was his career, and he knows what we need as field leaders in order to be successful here. And so that partnership with Darren and just his exposure, and he still cries whenever he talks about the impact that he was able to make on the fishermen that he worked with. I won't share a story here, but you know, seasoned owners who truly understand this industry and understand that the leaders that you bring on board at the corporate level need that exposure and experience as well. It is different than typical corporate America, and it has to be run differently in order for people to be successful. Um, the comp plan being voted number one out of 7,000, I think that that's very important for people to know that you can make money here and that there's different ways to go about doing that. the global footprint piece is also really impressive to me. In my previous company, we only ever got to 4 countries. I know from experience because the last country that was added was Japan, and I was very heavily involved in launching that country. And I know that it takes tens of millions of dollars to go through all of the federal regulations from an ingredients perspective, to say nothing of marketing and manufacturing and warehousing and shipping and all the things. Um, a lot of times the containers look differently, and so there's just a lot of costs that people don't think about, and it takes years to put the infrastructure for that together in order to get that launched, and we don't have that here because of the merge of the 14 companies coming together as one. It's a very well-oiled machine in multiple countries, more than 50. The last thing that I typically share is that our products are not on trial. You hear new company, new opportunity, and while that is great, a lot of times you have a new product. And people, in my opinion, are much more leery now than they used to be of what they're putting in their body. And so the fact that we don't have to worry about, our products carry clinical trials, they go through annual quality tests. The product that we focus on to launch people has been around more than 12 years. This is not a trial period to see how it goes. This is proven. And we have the additional component of the R&D piece in order, to bring about new products. And so all of that combined into one pretty package, in my opinion, is what makes Partner Co different.
It's pretty impressive when people don't realize what you just hit it on the head, having a footprint already globally. The company I was with previously was in 2 countries and had a third barely started. And until you realize it, and you also hit the head about owners. The first owner I had, he was a networker, one of the best I've ever seen. He was great. The company needed someone who had to operate it. Sadly enough, he was really poor at the business side. Then the next company I went with that ended up becoming this one was a company that was run by all business people. And then you had the business side, they didn't understand. And so I'm really hesitant to use the word unicorn, but because it's like everybody wants to say that. But honestly, if you really look at everything about our company, proven brands, like you said, and all, you don't have to worry about the quality control. It's been there for a long time. Brands that have been around for a long time, but our ownership is so different. With Darren and John, it really is. And with no debt, I mean, this company is really poised to go special places. We both believe that, and as all these years of history. So we're going to talk about the business side. The last 20 minutes, I really want to talk about. So Chris Doyle just called you and said, "You've already convinced me. I want to do this. Okay, I'm ready to get started." So what do you do with a brand new person? They say, "I'm ready to get started." This is a person. Let's just say they've never even done this industry. What do you do with them? How do you get them going?
So we have a system of growth here. I didn't even touch on that as part of one of the bullet points that I usually tell somebody, but the system of growth, the SOG is what we refer to it sometimes. Being able to have, we use a boards app. I know there are different boards across our company that people use different things, but we use the Cylinderized board in order to get someone started, and we focus on the drops only. And I think that there's a component to that that eliminates overwhelm and confusion and frustration for new people when you can focus them on one product and you truly give them the tools and resources that they need to be successful. So I feel very confident to bring someone here, regardless of their experience, because of that system of growth. And we use that over and over and over and over again in order to get people to what we call ultimate and gold status, which unlocks their max compensation for life. I think one thing that people without a lot of experience in direct sales maybe fall into is not everybody is going to go the distance with you. Not everybody is going to commit to the same level of engagement that you are. And then they start taking it personally when those people don't, and they think, well, I'm a failure as a leader. And the truth of the matter is you have very little control. You have no control. Let's just say that over what other people do. You only can control what you do. And so I think that keeping that in mind and staying in a neutral headspace whenever you bring somebody in, you can, as they say, lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. It's the same thing that applies as you're bringing in a new person. You can give them all the tools and resources that they need to be successful, but then they've got to go take it and be willing to be coachable and be willing to adopt our system. I honestly was very hesitant. I didn't want to post to social media twice a day. But if I was going to be coachable and if I was going to be a leader, then I needed to be able to do it regardless of how I felt about it. So we always use the system of growth in order to launch new people. It's proven itself again and again and again. And so we still use that to this day, 18 months later.
Well, I know that we all know if you've ever been around this industry, duplication is the key and
Yeah,
allowing, because there's going to be people join your business that have a real talent level. And actually, with our duplicatable system, it's almost scary because if they're too talented, they don't want to use the system. I've got some people right
right.
in my company, they've been in other businesses, they don't want to engage in this. And I'm like, they're missing out because it's not about what they can do, it's about how to get your team comfortable. I mean, that's
That's
just the way
right.
to understand it. That's what really works is a duplicatable system. And that's what, and by the way, I want to be the first to admit when they introduced the system of growth, I thought that is never going to work. I was really hesitant. I didn't, and yet then once it had some success early on, I'm like, oh, this temporary. Okay. So I'm old enough and wise enough to say, hey, I was wrong. The
Yeah.
world has changed place. And someone, I want to add one other thing. We talked about all the countries, guys. When we hear about that, you're from Brandon, Mississippi. So you talked about that. Now you live in Tennessee. So we're talking about these southern states. When somebody thinks, how in the world am I going to get business needs? It won't be who you knew in another country. I mean, I've never been to Australia, but I have a huge team that built in Australia without me. And because
Mhm.
someone else started someone I've really never even met, but a few of them on the Zooms. The reason I bring that up is because the world is shrunk. And this perfect example is this call right here. And some of these calls even we've had 5, 6 countries on them. I don't know how they do that because they don't how they interpret what we say sometimes. But
Under
we've got
grammar,
multiple countries on multiple stations.
education,
So your business
private
will go
company,
into other areas
it's
without
grammar.
any question about it. If you'll just realize that it makes a difference. So you use the system of growth. So let's talk about what you see in the next 2 years with particles. We talk about long term, and I mean, both of us that's important to us. We want to build something that lasts. And obviously, I don't even have to do this anymore. The company still pays me every week, and we talked about freedom, and you mentioned that. I want to bring that up. I mean, I went through some difficult times last year because I had to have chemo.
Mhm.
And your dad, I had chemo treatment. Yet
Yeah.
my checks, because of the system of growth, were increasing instead of declining. And I was not even noticing because I didn't feel like it. So let's
Yeah.
talk about what that means. Freedom was if I had had my corporate job, I was never in corporate America, but if I'd had a conventional business where I couldn't operate it, yet my team went on without me doing anything. And I have to commend my daughter and John and Christy Oki. They're on my team and they didn't do that. They just kept on, they didn't need me. They already learned how to do this. So let's talk about what you see going on for the next few years. As we talk about long-term goals. And I know that was important to you before you really engaged here.
Yeah. You know, I can tell you that this is so early on. You know, take PXP, for example. Our biggest event in the year is coming up in a couple weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And there's going to be less than 10,000 people there, a lot less. And so one day, the partner code conventions and PXPs will have to meet in bigger places. We're already doing regional events with different countries, but long term, I can foresee them having to do regional events, in different cities because the company is going to be so large. I am truly so excited for the runway of growth that is here. I think that we are just easing into that momentum phase. We've got the machine prepped and primed and ready with all of the products that we have in our portfolio, with the system of growth, with more and more people earning that $10,000 savings bonus. You know, my goal when I'm bringing people in is to get them paid. And it's kind of like Jerry Maguire, show me the money. You know, you've got to show people the money, but you also have to create a culture that they feel a part of. And we have that here with Partner Co. And so all of the components are there to set us up for that built to last long term, you know, growth. And I'm very excited for what these next couple of years are going to do, because I just see it all coming together. And yes, there are going to be bumps in the road. Yes, we are a young company and there's a lot left from an IT perspective, for example. You know, there's going to be growing pains with a new company like Partner Co, but we have the people in place who know how to bring those things to life. And being where we are in this early stage, you can look at it a couple of different ways. I guess you can, you know, complain about what's not available or what may have been available to you in a previous opportunity or something like that. But the way that I look at it is we get to be first, and we get to be a part of this as it's just getting started and getting off the ground. And that's truly the best place to be, in my opinion. So I'm grateful every day to be here, and I'm excited for where we are headed. I think that the people who stick and stay, you know, they ride the wave, if you will, in terms of the overcoming the disappointments and overcoming um the people that don't stay the course and see what you see. Part of building a long-term successful business is having the mindset that no matter what, you're not going to quit. Like during this past year for you, where you haven't been able to be as engaged, there were seasons in my previous company, and I'm sure there will be here, where I have to step away for a time, you know, to deal with a losing a parent, having two children, moving out of state. Like there's life is going to continue to happen, but you just have to navigate it and still plug in when you can, and plug into the community, because a lot of times the community is what keeps people here. It's not the money, you know, as great as it is, it's not the product in some cases, it's not the company, it's truly the community that's built. And I'll be the first to tell you, I didn't start direct sales to make more friends. And that's not me being ugly or rude. I just didn't. Like I've had friends, and but your friendships change after a while, and you know your friends who are a part of the same business as you and maybe have the same goals as you long term really end up being closer to you than family in some situations, you know. And so I'm very grateful to be a part of it. And I'll say I want to recommend this book. It says Get Out of Your Head. It's written by Jenny Allen. I just wrapped it up not too long ago myself, but this has been a really great book for me and for anyone else that tends to struggle with their mindset sometimes. You know, sometimes we regress and we do the imposter syndrome thing where we start beating ourselves up for things that have happened or things that didn't go the way that we wanted them to. And I think that you just have to stay in a place of I'm not going anywhere. Like my feet are planted here. The grass is greener where you water it, right? And so you've got to constantly prune your garden, if you will, and pull out the weeds and pull out the negative that can creep into your mind and into your heart sometimes, in order to really stay focused on what keeps you here, why you're so blessed to be a part of it, how you get to use it as a ministry in order to reach other people and help them on their health journey. And when you keep it about other people, that's what makes it fun, and that's what allows for you to open your eyes to the possibilities of 50 plus countries, and you know, spreading the word, if you will, in terms of what we have in our hands.
I want to reiterate that about the culture and the community, because guys, when I was you were in corporate America as in the corporate side, and I was an owner of a company with over 400 employees. And I used to think that they were my friends. And what I learned very quickly was when we weren't paying the payroll, we weren't friends, except for one. I think I have one friend left out of that. That was my plant manager that we still coordinate with. But here, you develop a friendship. I mean, I know there's so many friends that I have across the country, no matter what, that if I needed something somewhere they reached out to me the whole time I was sick, it was amazing. The calls and texts of encouragement I had that was really different. And I don't mean that in anything negative about corporate America, and you may feel like but guys, it's just a different way when you develop a friendship. I think it's because we have a common goal. I think it's because
Yeah.
we're looking. So, I mean, we all
Well,
have,
when I look back on my corporate experience, my
yeah,
favorite parts of it were the people, right? The people that I worked with, and truly the people that you do life with. When you're working full time, you see those people more than you see your family. And so they become your family. And I won't take anything for those relationships that were established through the different seasons of my life and the different seasons of, you know, chapters, if you will, of business and corporate and all of it. Like it has truly gotten me where I am and made me a better leader because of understanding that those relationships are so important. And I think that it's also important to keep in mind that every time you reach out to people who are on your team or your customers, like it can't just be about business. Like you've got to invest in what's going on in their life and stop long enough to ask, like, how are things at home and how are your parents? Or, you know, if you know somebody that's been sick or if you know that they've been on vacation, like you've still got to be a person who cares about people. And when you sometimes that's hard because we're so busy, right? But when you do take that opportunity to kind of invest yourself in what's going on with them, um, they're more apt to stick with you long term because they know that you care.
it is so critical. And if it's not in your heart, I see people who come and go, and they can be leaders as well, but it's all about them. It's not about the team. And if you,
Yeah.
that was a difficult part for me. I'll admit that when I came, I was about being the boss. I wasn't about being, and I had to learn that. As I've watched great leaders come along, you being one, Michelle McKay, I saw her join us. I think she is your sponsor. Am I correct?
No, Sheila Bukowski's my sponsor, and then Michelle's above Sheila.
Okay, so you're in Michelle's team. So the thing I want you to understand is that I know y'all work together, but it's more about this. And Brent Palmer, I believe, is on, you're on part of
Mhm.
his team. I know that.
Yeah.
And Brent's become one of my closest friends. We're not connected again financially, but the point is that guys, you'll develop relationships here if it's about your team. And I think Brent, that's one of the things Brent hits on so much is about love on your team. It's about them. It's not, and that was something I had to learn.
Yeah.
Not what you want, it's what they want. And so many people, and listen, if somebody doesn't want to come here to make $10,000 a week, that's okay. They may be here to make $500 a week or 500 a month. That's okay.
Right.
Do not underscore that person. It's about what their goals are in life. And that was difficult for me because I wanted everybody to want what I wanted. I was trying to
Yeah.
recover from losing $1 million company. And yet some people were just here, and my daughter in particular. My daughter was like, Dad, that's your thing. Now she's really engaged here and really excited. But in the beginning stages, it was Dad's business. And so
Yeah.
really, I think that's what we all have to understand. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to add? You know, it's amazing the cult. I've getting so many comments in the chat. People are just loving and wanting to know when this is going to be. Yes, it is recorded. For those who don't know, it is recorded. My daughter will post it on her site, and that's Kristen White. John, you may help me with that. Val, you may know her site. I don't even know. It's Kristen White YouTube channel where this will go. You can tell I don't keep up with that stuff. I'm not a technology guy. I did learn to Zoom because I had no choice. But other than that, you'll find that when I make a post, I have to get my daughter to create the flyers. I just learned to get people to help me. I'm just not good at certain things. That's okay.
That's okay.
We've got a great team that does that for us. So any parting words for someone who's just, let's say that you've just been on this call and you're frustrated and you're not where you want to be. What would you tell them?
I think that you're going to face frustrations at every level of your business, to be honest. I'm not saying that to burst your bubble, but it's not like you reach a certain title and suddenly your frustrations go away, right? I think that you've got to figure out if it's worth it to you to plug in. Like when you're frustrated, that's when you really have to sink your heels down. I think that again, as long as you keep your focus about other people and what sets them up for success. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. Like we did the whole Enneagram thing in Columbus. And one of the things about an 8 is that she is a mama bear. Like she don't mess, you can mess with me all day long. Don't mess with my kids. Don't mess with my team. Don't mess with my husband. Like I'm coming after you for that. And so you know, when you are that committed to your people and you truly want them at any level, whether it's, you know, someone that's just here for the health benefits, or whether, to your point, it's just someone who wants, you know, $300 to $500 a month, just to give them a little bit of wiggle room within their monthly oh my gosh, what's the word I'm looking for?
Budget.
Their budget. Yes, thank you. I, or you have somebody that's really looking to create life-changing income and income replacement money. The beauty of all of that is that you get to handhold that person through each step in order to get them where they want to go. And in the process of all of that, you get where what you want out of this business, because they're happy, they're working, or they're using the products month over month and they're on a subscription. You know, you're creating long-term residual income for yourself, but you're also creating those relationships. And I think one of the hardest things as a leader is seeing potential in people that they don't see in themselves, or that they're not willing to commit to long term, right? And so that's where you have to step away from it for a moment. And this is learned through experience, right? Like, I didn't know this walking in day one, but you have to pivot. Like, when I think of what I do on a daily basis, the best definition that I can give you is spin plates. Like, I'm constantly spinning plates because it's my husband and my kids and like my family dynamic. It's my business dynamic. And that business dynamic brings multiple personalities and multiple different goals and seasons of their life. So it's not just about what's going on in my life, it's about adapting your conversations with each individual person, knowing that they have 1,000 other things going on in their life and they've got 1,000 different stresses that you don't know about, because people don't tell you everything, you know. And so it's just showing them what this can be for them, knowing that you have the tools in order to set them up for success if they choose to engage. And when they choose to engage, when you can get them in front of you or to an event, whether it's a Super Saturday or a Connect event or PXP or something like that, the more that people will plug in, the more likely they are to stick and stay. And so, you know, my advice to someone who's just getting started, somebody that's frustrated, is just keep going. Like, don't allow. I told my kids this before I left to go to Bali this summer with the company. You have to be brave with your life so that other people will be brave with theirs. And I think that that applies daily to what we do here. You have to continue to show up and be brave when other people are flailing, when they're like, I don't know if I can do this, or I don't know if I can add one more thing to my plate, or, you know, my customers aren't buying like they once were, or I'm getting negative feedback from a couple of different people, or whatever. Like, there's going to constantly be things that are thrown at you. And it's staying in this neutral headspace of, no matter what, I'm here. I'm planted here. This is where I feel my best. I know the products work. I feel very confident to bring people here because I've seen the success of people who plug in and work this and can earn and really genuinely add not only value to their own personal health, but value to their family's budget. And when you see the difference that you're making for people, it allows for you to have a better attitude, to get your mind and your heart right in the right place. I think it's important to continue to do that self development every day so that you are the best version of yourself and the best leader that you can be.
Amazing. I knew you were going to be good, and that's why I wanted you here, because I wanted to talk about, and guys, like I said, this all came from just literally as we talked. I mean, this is kind of like these interviews about Saturday morning, is just talking about what we are. And I think those are great words of advice, is thinking about loving on your people, know where they are, and know that everybody's not going to do this, guys. People are going to leave. I mean, my daughter taught me that from being in the gym business. She said, Dad, if everybody came to the gym, worked out, that we couldn't have everybody that joins and wants to do better. And the same is true with our business. People want better, but they forget their why, and they forget why they started. or they don't have the supportive spouse. I was fortunate in that case too. You said your husband was always supportive. My wife was totally against this, by the way, totally. But now she's okay. But she was really against it in the beginning. But you know, she also said something you said. I got my husband back because I was in depression after losing my business. I was really depressed and I was just not where I needed to be. So thank you so much, Haley, for taking time out this Saturday. I know you're going to be busy scheduled. I want to add one more thing. You notice you said one of the things we iterate each Saturday, plugging in, and you always notice the ones that are whining, they're complaining, they don't plug in. But they'll whine on Monday, but they don't plug in on whether it's this Saturday or anything else. They just don't do those things. And I will never stop telling you, if you want this to change your life, plugging in is critical. But the big event, I still remember my very first event, and I was sitting on the back row trying to understand what this industry was about. Broken, who I was at that time, a broken man who lost everything. And all I got was some hope that maybe I could do this. And by the way, I did not want to be in this industry. This was my attitude, like yours in the beginning. So we had so much in common. I didn't even realize that. I was told I was going to do it for about a year to 2 years so I could figure out what I was going to do. That's been 23 years, and I would never go back to corporate America again to do anything like it because it's of what it offers. Thank you so much. Haley, any last thing before we go?
Thank you for having me.
I just
I don't think
appreciate
so. I just appreciate the opportunity to be here. I hope that this helps someone where I am. Still, some days I still get in my head. I still, think all the what ifs and whatever, but like you just have to push those away. You can only control what you do, right? At the end of the day, you can't control what other people do, but you can feel confident in where you are and what you have in your hands. And know that the people who are meant to go with you for the long haul will, and you've just got to find them. So that's
Exactly.
that's the fun part to me about the business is being able to constantly bring new people in order to show them how this is different if they're willing to embrace it. So
Well, I'm going to finalize with one last thing. One thing she said, and that was she uses that system of growth and she doesn't question it. She does it exactly the way it says. And this is someone who came from another company with lots of success, but still follows that system of growth. Thank you so much again for being on with us. I'm going to stop the recording.